picking on him.
Well, I think
People
back to
will
the
just
whole
freak.
Celestine thing. All we wanted her to do was eat food in front of us. Celestine was this woman with no arms and no legs.
I remember, yeah.
And we rolled her in, and we wanted to see her actually feed herself, and people were so sickened by the whole thing. It was the lowest rated show.
They wheeled her out, and she was a very dark-skinned black woman, and all she was a head, and they put her... They didn't realize that they had a black background, so it looked like just No, they didn't. It was just like a floating head. Nevertheless, I thought, wow, people are really going to want to see her cut her food. It's going to be like real... I mean... And I have to admit, it was the lowest rated segment in the Channel 9 history. Now, the Channel 9 show...
They turned people off. They turned it off.
Howard Stern built his reputation and a broadcasting empire on shock. In the 1990s, The Howard Stern Show was a cultural juggernaut precisely because it aired what no one else dared to. Explicit jokes, celebrity confessions, bizarre contests, and anything that could be turned into spectacle. Yet in the middle of this unrelenting circus, one episode stood apart for reasons that had nothing to do with comedy or outrage. It was the day Celestine Tate Harrington came on the show. A day so unsettling that, as Stern himself later admitted, the audience didn't even want to see it. Celestine Tate Harrington was unlike any guest Howard Stern had ever interviewed. She wasn't there to shock or to play along with the usual spectacle. She was a quadriplegic musician, a mother, and an author who had spent her life proving that her disability did not define her worth. But when she appeared on the show, something happened that no one quite expected. Instead of laughter or scorn, there was an almost palpable discomfort. A collective sense that the usual tone of irreverence simply couldn't contain the raw reality she brought with her. Stern would later recall that it was one of the rare moments when his audience recoiled, not because they were offended, but because they were confronted by a kind of human determination that felt too real for entertainment. In the landscape of American radio, few programs have ever generated as much fascination, controversy, and cultural impact as The Howard Stern Show. Airing daily across major markets, the show became a lightning rod for debates over free speech, decency standards, and the changing definition of entertainment in the late 20th century. At its core, The Howard Stern Show was the blueprint for shock jock radio, a style built on pushing every conceivable boundary. Launched in the mid-1980s and reaching its peak popularity in the 1990s, the program combined explicit sexual humor, brutally honest interviews, prank calls, and segments designed to provoke outrage or laughter, sometimes both at once. Stern himself cultivated a persona as the irreverent everyman who said the things no one else dared to say. Listeners tuned in precisely because the show felt unpredictable and unsanitized. One day might feature celebrity gossip or a raunchy contest. The next could veer into heartfelt confessions or unsparing mockery. It was a place where no topic was off limits and no guest was immune to becoming part of the spectacle. For many fans, this transgressive energy was exactly what made the show addictive. For critics, it was proof that popular culture had lost all sense of restraint. By the late 1980s, Howard Stern had become the top-rated morning radio host in New York. As his popularity grew, television producers and local stations saw an opportunity to bring his shock jock persona to a late-night audience. In 1990, WWOR-TV Channel 9, an independent New Jersey-based station broadcasting into the New York metropolitan area, offered Stern his own TV program. The result was The Howard Stern Show, which was essentially a televised variety show based on the radio format. The Channel 9 show was a surprise success, quickly becoming one of the station's highest-rated programs. It earned both massive viewership and constant criticism. But while most episodes were known for crude humor and outrageous antics, some moments stood out because they tapped into something far more unsettling, something that made even the show's hardened audience hesitate. One of those moments was the day Celestine Tate Harrington came into the studio. Celestine Tate Harrington was not a provocateur. She was not a shock act. She was a musician and a mother, determined to live independently despite unimaginable obstacles. Born with arthrogryposis, a rare congenital disorder that left her without the use of her limbs, she learned to navigate life almost entirely with her mouth and neck. Her parents deserted her when she was still very young, and she and her sister were taken in by their grandparents. From the beginning, her life was defined by a mixture of hardship and determination. She completed high school in only 3 years, an accomplishment made even more remarkable by the physical challenges she faced every day. Unable to walk, she developed a unique hopping-like way of crawling, using her underdeveloped arms and legs to propel herself across the floor. In 1976, she gained national headlines after giving birth to a child with her then-boyfriend. Determined to raise her baby despite her disability, she turned to the Philadelphia Department of Public Welfare for assistance. Instead of offering support, a social worker recommended that the infant be removed from her custody altogether, claiming that the child could not possibly be receiving adequate care in her home. The suggestion ignited a wave of controversy and public attention. Advocates for disability rights rallied behind her, arguing that her physical limitations alone were not grounds to take her child away. At the custody hearing, Celestine shocked everyone in attendance when she calmly dressed and undressed her baby daughter, Nia, using only her lips, teeth, and tongue. The demonstration left little doubt about her resourcefulness and determination to care for her child. The judge remarked that she was very sensible and possessed unusual mental capacity, an acknowledgement of the intelligence and willpower that had carried her so far. At the time, Celestine relied on Social Security and public aid to get by, and Jet magazine published her address so readers could offer help. The response was overwhelming. Within weeks, the magazine reported that letters and donations had poured in by the hundreds, reflecting how deeply her fight for custody had moved people across the country. Eventually, Celestine retained full custody of Nia, and just a few years later had another child. Starting in the 1980s, she began performing music on the streets of downtown Philadelphia, later moving her act to the Atlantic City boardwalk. Using a portable keyboard, she operated with her lips, chin, and tongue. She taught herself to play. Her performances not only provided an income, but also became a symbol of her independence and resilience. In 1992, she published her autobiography, Some Crawl and Never Walk, hoping to share her story of self-sufficiency with a wider audience. When she appeared on Stern's show, Celestine came prepared to be seen as a person first, an author and musician whose life demanded respect. But that was never the lens through which the audience encountered her. For Stern's crew and the millions watching, the image alone was jarring. A woman on a gurney maneuvering through life with only her face. Unlike the flamboyant characters and contrived stunts that typically filled the airwaves, this was real. The concept was simple enough. Stern heard of this woman, Celestine, who could actually live without the use of her hands or feet, and he wanted to see her eat a meal with a knife and fork. Stern later remarked that the segment was disturbing, not because of anything Celestine said or did, but because it forced the audience to confront a reality they would rather have ignored. It wasn't a joke gone wrong or an offensive prank. It was the uncomfortable spectacle of a disabled woman insisting on her own dignity, refusing to be pitied or ridiculed, and demonstrating abilities that defied easy categorization.
And but there, I remember we put it on in the last quarter hour. We dropped to a 3.2 share, which was the lowest share we'd ever had in the final quarter hour.
They bailed.
Yeah, so
In droves.
I remember liking watching her do the Star Spangled Banner before
great.
U.S. Open Source.
I was totally wrong on that one. Just didn't read the public's mood. I remember Dan Farmicle goes, I told you, Celestine, she's too depressing.
The TV ratings plummeted for the segment. Even in the studio, Stern and his team seemed uncertain about how to respond. The tone shifted from the usual raucous banter to something closer to quiet fascination mixed with discomfort. It was as if, for once, the machinery of the show, so adept at reducing everything to entertainment, had no idea how to process what was happening in front of them. What made the moment so powerful was precisely what made it so hard to watch. Celestine wasn't there to be a sideshow. She was there to promote herself and share her life. But in the framework of the Howard Stern Show, everything became a spectacle by default. When the spectacle is a living testament to human perseverance, and an indictment of the world's unwillingness to accommodate difference, the tension becomes nearly unbearable. It is rare to see that kind of collective unease in popular media. In a cultural environment that prizes either outrage or amusement, Celestine's appearance occupied an uncharted middle ground. It made people uncomfortable, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she revealed how profoundly unprepared most people are to see a disabled person outside of a narrative of pity or condescension. After the episode aired, Celestine continued to perform and advocate for herself. Celestine would end up on The Stern Show several more times with actual fanfare and nothing like her first appearance. She remained fiercely independent until her tragic death in 1998, when she was struck by a minivan while crossing the street in her motorized wheelchair. Hundreds of people gathered at Atlantic City to attend her memorial service. Celestine's legacy is that of a woman who refused to be defined by other people's discomfort, who insisted on living life on her own terms. Today, when replays or clips of the episode occasionally surface, they are often framed as an example of Stern going too far. But that isn't quite accurate. The segment was disturbing, yes, but not because it was cruel. It was disturbing because it held up a mirror to an audience and a media culture that could not reconcile entertainment with genuine humanity. More than 30 years later, it remains perhaps the most haunting reminder of what happens when real life punctures the carefully constructed illusion of radio spectacle, and forces us to ask why seeing a woman simply existing in her body felt more transgressive than anything else the show ever broadcast. It was proof that even at the height of shock radio, there were still moments too human and too honest to turn into entertainment.